Now to Phil Robertson, who's the Deputy Director of Human Rights Watch's Asia Division, joins us also from Bangkok in Thailand. And Phil, this stay of deportation is obviously welcome, but there's still a great deal of uncertainty. Tell us who these migrants are and what your concerns are.
Well, these are persons who have been detained in Malaysia over the course of the last year or so. These are people, including at least 3 of these people we know are refugees recognized by UNHCR. There are probably many more recognized refugees in this group. At least 17 of these children are persons who will be separated from one or both of their parents by this movement if they're sent back to Myanmar. This is a group that has been held, and the Malaysian immigration has not allowed the UN Refugee Agency access to person in immigration detention centers since August 2019. So there's a lot of question marks about how many refugees and asylum seekers there are in this group and why the Malaysian authorities are not allowing the international community to have access to them.
So a court will now hear the group's application for judicial review. What needs to happen?
Well, we need this entire movement to be stopped. The UNHCR needs to be allowed to have unfettered access to these 1,200 people to ascertain who they are. How many of them are refugees with UNHCR cards? How many are asylum seekers who have significant claims to possible refugee status? And how many of these are children whose separation from parents would be devastating for their lives?
And in Myanmar itself, this ratcheting up of international pressure on the junta in an effort to restore democracy and release Aung San Suu Kyi, like these targeted sanctions from the EU, the United States and Canada, what will be the likely effect of that?
Well, we think that there is going to be an increased pressure that comes from the international community that makes it clear to the Myanmar military that their coup is unwelcome, that it's not supported by the international community nor the people of Myanmar, and that the only path forward is for them to rescind this and enter in negotiations with the government that was elected in November 2020 and also the people of Myanmar. There has to be some clarity that there is no other way forward for the Myanmar military other than to do that, because if they don't, they will head down a path to complete international isolation and accountability mechanisms for the top officials there.
But is it really likely that the military will follow that path? And we've been here before, haven't we, with complete isolation?
Well, I mean, I think that what has surprised the military this time is the size of the turnout of the protests, which were just massive yesterday, but also huge last week, and also the fact that international community has been moving rather quickly on this. I don't think that the government there counted on the actual impact of the internet and the ability of people to get information out, where every time something happens, whether it be a crackdown by police or people being shot in Mandalay or in Naypyidaw, the information is instantly coming out and it is being relayed around the world much faster than the Myanmar military junta can deal with.
So you have the pressure from the outside. What about pressure from within? To what extent does the civil disobedience that you're talking about create problems for the junta and this kind of defiance of the protest movement in the face of warnings of the potential for loss of life?
Well, I think that people recognize that this is a time where they must go forward, that the alternative is to return to the military dictatorship, which the Myanmar people had experience with over 5 decades, and they're just not willing to go back to that. So we've seen a massive disobedience of civil servants, the transportation shutdowns, business shutdowns. There have been a number of police that have come across in some places and joined the protesters. So I think that, the pressure is really on, and they're making the country ungovernable by the military. And I think that ultimately this is going to be a key part of the decision that the military has to make, that they are not going to be able to go forward with this coup and continue in the way they are.
Phil Robertson, appreciate that. It's Phil Robertson from Human Rights Watch. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.